Well, hi, Scott, and welcome to episode 6.
Hey, Mark. Great to be with you again today. You know, last time we had the pleasure of recording in the brewery. I was wondering if there might be any beer today.
Well, not yet, but no, not on the show today, but that was fun.
Okay.
And I do hope we can do it again soon. So it was great to be together. But, you know, before we begin, just like last time, I do have to provide a disclaimer that the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the co-host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of sponsors or any of its affiliates.
Okay, well, we got that behind us. And today we do get a great opportunity to learn about one of the very key stakeholders in the entire drug reimbursement and payment system. And that, of course, is the pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, as they're frequently referred to. Our guest today is Mesfin Tegenu. We're super happy to have him with us. He led PerformRx for many years. He's an early PBM that focused first on supporting Medicaid patients, but then grew into Medicare and now serves a full spectrum of private and public clients. Welcome to the podcast, Mesfin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Well, Mesfin, we're thrilled you're here. Obviously, the PBM is a big part of access, and looking forward to learning more and hearing your perspectives. But Scott and I, we seem to start every episode where we give our guests a chance to tell us a little bit about your founding story, like how you got into the business, and a little bit about your career and how you got to where you are today. Do you mind starting off with that?
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you. The pharmacy benefit management space wasn't something that I thought I would be in when I finished college. Once I graduated from St. John's, and I got some headhunters calling me, and I was supposed to be a radiologist pharmacist, not a PBM expert, but the same headhunter who tried to get me hired into a hospital of radiology as a radiology pharmacist called me back and said, hey, there is some other opportunity. You have no idea how better that is. So that's really how I got into the PBM space. The first time it was Hip Hop New York. It's now Emblem Health in New York City. So that's where, at the time, that was in early 90s, 94, 93, 94. It was one of the companies that had its own PBM, in-house PBM operations, very efficiently run in-house PBM operations. So that's where I started to learn the PBM industry, stayed there for several years, about 6-7 years. And then from there on, moved on to create this company that Scott referred earlier, build a pharmacy benefit management company in Philadelphia, based out of Philly. And the company at that time, it wasn't supposed to be a PBM. It was supposed to be an in-house solution to a health plan that was at that time really suffering from a cost that they didn't know what it was. It was finally, we found out it was more, a hemophilia related issue, a dual eligible related issue that nobody knew how much they would cost. Now we are talking 1999. So managed Medicaid was enrolling dual eligibles for the first time, and nobody knew what they were bidding on. So the health plan was in big trouble. So when they reached out to me to solve that problem, my proposal to them was, hey, I think you have to, no PBM can solve this for you. You probably have to build a capability in-house and do it yourself. So that's how it all started. So we built an in-house capability first. Companies that lost money 3 years in a row made money for the first time that year. And then that was reported in various local papers and professional trade magazines, end up servicing similar clients at that time. So it turned into a PBM. So by the time I left, it was a PBM that has reached over 12 states, over 6 million people, generating managing over $3 billion in drug costs. So that's a short, abbreviated history of how I got into the business.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Mesfin, you've certainly been a long time and highly respected PBM executive, and I know you've seen a lot of change in the space regarding drug pricing and management of the access to it as well. Tell us a little bit about your early days of PerformRx and what the landscape was like in the late 1990s, early 2000s.
The landscape at that time was very different, as you might guess. It was competitive. The PBM space was competitive. PBMs were either local or regional. And so all decisions, all formulary determinations, utilization management review protocols were really plant-centered than PBM-centered. Plans had an ability to dictate how to get things done. And more importantly, at that time, the rebate was a factor, but it wasn't that much of a factor at all. I mean, it was we negotiated, but just because formularies were being taken place at that time, but it wasn't really, things weren't done just for the rebates. So utilization management strategies were in place, but not at the level that it is today. It was, and then health plans, the commercial business was focused more on, in HIP of New York, we were focused more on high blood pressure medications at that time, and now we are talking, the big deal was, cholesterol drug came out, and it was a big deal. It was expensive at that time, $200, so diabetic drugs, and then when you came to manage Medicaid, in addition to those cardiovascular diseases, there were depression. Antipsychotics were the big deal at that time. Actually, they were cost drivers. They were expensive. It was $600-700. And then ADHD drug. And then hemophilia in the government-funded program was a cost driver. So when you look at what was then, really the major difference was, one, healthcare was local. You managed it either locally or regionally. Health plans had control, had a say on how they want to manage it. And unit cost was important, but unit cost was, but quality was also equally important at that time.
Well, I wish we could go back to those days. Because things are very different now. What do you think sort of, what started some of the material changes that led from those, those early days of the PBM world and the local, or regional plans and to where things are today? And can you sort of share some of your thoughts of that evolution?
So I would say, the fundamentals of the PBM functions have not changed. I mean, when you think about then developing pharmacy network, mail specialty distribution facilities, claim processing, which has always been a commodity, sort of a drug reimbursement strategy to pay reimbursement for pharmacies, credentialing and audits, formulary development, all this, and rebate negotiation and administration. These fundamentals have stayed the same. That has not changed. What has changed is, how we use those. So the business didn't innovate at all. The business just evolved into something a little different today. So with the fundamentals being the same, the processes and the approach has changed. All right. So to answer to your question, so what happened? So if you remember back in, I think it's 2011, when the Hep C came into the market, that was a breakthrough. I mean, a cure for hepatitis C. Impressive innovation, amazing work by Gilead. And then then comes $1,000 a pill associated with it. So the industry was shocked because, I mean, it just doubled the pharmacy cost. If all Hep C patients were to be treated that year, the annual pharmacy cost would have doubled. So that was how the projection was. So the Hep C, so innovation came, and $1,000 per pill, $30,000 per month, 3 months therapy was introduced, cure. So the cost-benefit analysis for this was, then people have looked at it and say, okay, maybe this is justified because long-term, this patient is a lifetime disease, all that stuff. And then the PBM industry said, hold on. So this is interesting. So how do we deal with this? Now followed that innovation come the big molecules, one by one, the MS drugs, the array, and all those innovations started to evolve. Now, so what we call specialty today became a thing. There was no name of specialty. It was called injectable drugs, high-cost drugs. Finally, somebody came up with specialty drugs. So that now this actually changed the marketplace. So now the business turned into now unit cost, heavy unit cost driven than anything else. People have started to see a $30,000 drug unit cost. There is a huge margin. So it became a unit cost driven space. Now, in this process, health plans were becoming aware that there is this thing called rebate, there is this thing called spread that PBMs used as a source of income, and they start to ask, hey, I need all of the rebates, and any spread you are making, I need to know, or I need to have that, or I need to spread my employer benefits accordingly. So I need all that to subsidize my program. It can't be yours. You just have to keep your admin fee, and you have to give me all the money. So now becomes health plans are demanding that they get all the discounts. PBMs are now getting squeezed and now started to be innovative. And so now this evolved into a volume business. So PBM said, okay, so now margin is narrowing because the buyers, the payers actually are demanding this money to come to them. And so we have to probably consolidate. We have to buy more plans, generate more volume, and then let's just go get as much money, as much volume as we can, and which is directly proportional to admin fees and associated revenues. So consolidation started to build up, 11 to 12, 13, 14, pharmacies, zero transaction almost every year. Mm-hmm. And then now fast forward today, we have a totally consolidated market, and three big, we call them the big three, controlling over 85% of the marketplace, and pretty much by default, where the market has created a situation where three companies would then determine the price of a new pharmaceutical product coming to the market. So the dynamics totally changed. So the health plan, payers, insurers continue to push for more and more discounts, and then the PBMs have only one way to do it: go to pharmaceutical manufacturers, and then to get that attention, they have to consolidate with what was found to be more effective, have more market control, and sort of create a quote-unquote a little monopoly kind of model, and then force the discount that you think you can get. So the model didn't change. The PBM model tried to sustain itself in whatever form it was back in 1990s. It didn't innovate at all. It just kept the same structure and wanted to make the best out of it. And then we got where we are today. And so we have a pretty consolidated market today. Most people think it's very inefficient in terms of operational efficiency, quality programs. But then most people also agree that it has helped to reduce cost it has helped payers to get the cheapest cost possible by using the volume-based GPO negotiation. So we are in a little contradiction here at this point. So that's where we are today.
Mm-hmm. That's a great overview of the evolution of things, Mesfin. As the industry as the primary care molecules, the big categories that you described at the beginning, all went generic, and the industry more and more, focused on the specialty in oncology, rare diseases, and so on. Much smaller populations, so, many fewer patients, and as you said, higher per unit costs. And then that just raised the stakes for everyone, and the rebates became so much more important then, which then triggered all the consolidation and aggressiveness in the management. Now, one of the lingering effects, though, is even after those rebates, the medicines are still expensive, and so in addition to the formulary exclusions and the rebate deals, around that, we also have a lot of prior authorizations these days. Many folks think that the prior authorizations are more difficult now than they were, in the early days. We have a lot more step edits, and we have much, much higher patient cost shares as well. And there are many folks that, would point to those things as, two things. One, creating a lot of friction and expense navigating it. But then secondly, actually inhibiting patients sometimes from getting the medicines they actually need. As a PBM executive, how do you think about that? Do you think that's true or not? Do you think, what's the PBM view on that?
So prior authorizations have been important tools in terms of market share movement. So that's why they are popular in the PBM space. But more importantly, all these benefit designs are built by plans, and then PBMs are technically, quote unquote, are implementing plan benefit designs. But with a consolidated market, PBMs have a right to dictate what that plan benefit design should look like because of the offerings that they provide. So prior authorizations have been, an issue from day one, and several attempts have been made to improve quality in ease, the negative ramification of prior authorizations on patients. And I honestly go back to why do we even need PAs in the first place? It's because we have certain formulary designations that prefer one product over the other product, and so we are trying to move market share to a preferred product, so we are forcing PAs to use the other product. That's one. And the other one is we don't even want to cover that product, so when it comes to high cost, expensive medications, I think the industry has to rethink about how it is pricing its product. And, Mark, I am still a total fan of value-based pricing for fair access concept. Total fan. I mean, that concept absolutely would work if there is a willingness and if the industry have the courage to do it. It can work for sure. I have done a lot of research on this. I have looked into so many options. The model would work, but people have to want it to work. Patients will be fine. We will get over the prioritization hassle. We'll get over the whole patient disadvantage hassle. I mean, so the industry seems to be right now, especially in the consolidated market, and the pharmaceutical manufacturers seem to be having a love-hate affair. I mean, it's you would if I were to deal with a couple of companies, then I don't have to worry about dealing with 600 health plans, because 3 companies will just do what needs to be done. Is attitude in terms of if pharma executives or business account leaders may think that that one edit can do it for me, so why do I care? But then that comes at expense, at a high expense, because those 3 companies are going to want you to inflate prices. We know that we know it has been a fact that the need to we have a high inflation of actual unit cost at this point because of rebates. So I think that unless we tackle that problem, unless we say what other way is there to get prescriptions easily to patients? How can we get it without much of a privatization, without still with keeping innovation, still keeping with market dynamics, still keeping the free market to drive it? How can we do it? It can be done, but people have to want to do it. And I still think if prescriptions were properly designed and payers were to agree not to hassle patients, and if pharma was to agree to what that agreed upon price should be, to agree, that's one model that works. People have to start to go out, to start to think out of the box. Is my message here. Otherwise, I mean, the patient is going to be always on the losing end.
Well, the patient is on the losing end, unfortunately, on too many of these things. And so, even today or recently, we've seen with, even things like with biosimilars and, the insulin products, they're being reduced in price. And yet, they're being dropped by, to $30, $35. And yet the response by the PBMs is to drop the drug from the formulary. And it's unfortunately not the lower costs don't waterfall down to benefit the patient at all. Because the patient, as you said, the plan design is already established. So that plan design seems to be a fundamental source of the challenge here. So what can be done to reduce the cost sharing that's on the patients, both for, let's say, copays or the high deductibles?
So this is a plan issue as much as the PBM issue. Now, the PBM issue has obviously the high margin incentive, because that's how the business model is designed. But the plan is also in it. I mean, the plan is that decides not to put the $35 product on formulary. So then the competition now is trying to neutralize the impact of that $35 by 95% reducing the brand medication. So as far as you are covered, as far as you don't even care whose house these medications are paid, if it's a transaction between these humongous companies, and it doesn't concern you, it won't inconvenience you, no problem. The problem is not everybody's covered with these big companies. Not everybody has access to those insurances. Not everybody has. So in that case, so that's a problem. Number one. Number two is when a company is motivated to do the right thing. If we demotivate them by taking their products off formulary, not covering it, then it's something that is supposed to be challenged. I think so. I think to your question, what can be done? Then the market has to reinvent itself. And the market has to reinvent itself. Market has to say, okay, there is a better model, and we are going to offer a better model, and the traditional models are now outliving their usefulness, and people have to continuously, innovate. I mean, it's innovation is not is not high in the healthcare industry. It's really static. So we just sorry. So that's what I would say. We have to challenge the system. We have to come up with, entrepreneurs should come up with different models, and we have to fight the status quo to change itself. I mean, that is the only time if these big health insurers were to lose 20% of their members to a better designed model, better benefit model, you'll see how quickly they will change. So I think innovation is critical. We really have to get back. People have to put their thinking head and come back to really innovate the healthcare system. It's a humongous $3 trillion industry. I mean, the status quo has overlived its usefulness at this point. I think that is the solution in my mind.
So, Mesfin, I'm glad to hear you say that. As you might guess, as you know, as I promote value-based pricing and access, my sense is that, we can achieve a reduction in the prior authorizations and the step edits and an improvement in the cost shares for patients. But as you pointed out, in exchange for pricing moderation, fair prices side of the equation. And but it does seem stuck. There are some folks who've been trying to work on that for some time, as you know.
We lost him.
We lost
heavy role that the rebates themselves play. I'd just be interested in your perspective on that. It feels like, to people on the outside, it feels like the rebate guarantee is what's driving a lot of the RFP choices, who wins the RFPs. Is that correct, or is that an overgeneralization? Well,
it's one of the most important factors, for sure. So rebate guarantees are the most important factor. I would say the leading factor, followed by other capabilities, your approach, all that stuff. But the rebate guarantee is now a factor. Now, I don't know, you probably know this. 50% of the PBM margin now comes from rebate. 50%.
Wow.
So the rebate guarantee is a leading.
So it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Now, so when you look at those guarantees, though, this is the paradox. When you look at those guarantees, say for those local plans or local PBMs or plans, for that matter, who would like to be innovative, they cannot even come close to those guarantees, the guarantees that are generated by the big three. Not even close. It's just you'll be almost like 35-40% below at best. So this is now this is for the same drug that the pharmaceutical companies have decided to give all kinds of discounts to the big three versus to the local and regional players. Because of that approach, the market is totally distorted, and you have no chance to compete. So now the rebate guarantee is the name of the game today. Now,
and this takes me back to your comments about the way the market evolved over time, but I think that's completely right. The smaller and mid-sized PBMs and plans that would like to compete differently are at a competitive disadvantage over the PBM. And that in large part is a function actually of the pharmaceutical industry's contracting strategy that was first developed and implemented, in the mid and late 90s, related to size and control. The bigger the customer was, the higher rebate they could earn, and then the more control they exerted in terms of moving market share through formulary exclusions and prior auths and all that sort of stuff, the higher the rebate could be. And now, 25 or 30 years of implementing, higher rebates in exchange for size and control, that's what we have, created. Large size and high control, and now everyone is sort of suffering the consequences of that. How about the benefits consultants? What's their perspective? Do they see sort of the dead end, I'll say, that it feels like we're in? And Are they encouraging folks to try different things or not?
The benefit consultants have, in my opinion, honestly, not only have now a responsibility, it's not just a business model because people are hiring them, have a responsibility also to reinvent their approach to this business. They are advising people are listening to them. They really have a responsibility. It's not just like they take a contract, run a spreadsheet, and then award using the traditional highest rebate and highest network discount, and you win. It should never be like that. Right now, at this point, still the focus is on that. I know some are trying to be a little more inclusive, more comprehensive in their approach, but I haven't seen real, truly innovative benefit consultant that actually wants to change, make a change, or even challenge the status quo. They seem to be riding on the status quo instead of really being a consultant. It's one thing to just do spreadsheet and get numbers out. It's another thing to say, hey, maybe this approach that this company is bringing, it may be a lower rebate deal, but in principle and in its approach in overall health score reduction, it's not a bad thing to consider. So they need to develop that ability to say that. They need to also have a pointer, a mark that actually gives more point to companies that are trying to innovate, that actually show some sort of innovative initiatives in the bidding process than the traditional, just give me, I'll give you this and give me that kind of thing. So they have a role. They can really help. But I haven't still seen them just leave their traditional nest that that have this whole spreadsheet approach and do a little more than that.
So Mesfin, if I could though, let me follow that up though, because it seems like this is putting a squeeze on everything, right? Like the benefit consultants are using the status quo. And as you said, the status quo isn't necessarily working for everybody, right? And it's gone now to the extreme on some of these other areas. And I would say one of those extremes is the impact on the patient through programs like copay accumulators, right? Which are, outlawed in 15 states. Think about it. They've embraced programs that have to be outlawed by the government because they're so bad. So why did these sort of things emerge and so quickly become widespread? And what can be done about it?
It's really goes down to the same, how do we get money out of pharmaceutical companies? Rebate is one. What else? So that was the driving force. Now, when I first saw how copay maximization was implemented by certain companies, in the companies that actually pretty much started to do this called me. He said, hey, look at this new model. I said to him, I don't think this is even legal. You can't do this. Because, this is supposed to be patient copay maximization, not payer saving program. But finally, so I said, I just totally told the company, just forget this. This is two things. One, it's not ethical. It's not even really the right thing to do. Number one. Number two, I don't think it's even legal. Fast forward, it's not even a year after I have this conversation with this company that it became mainstream. And in one of the RFPs, a very respectable plan called me and said, hey, as part of this RFP process, I want you to build a copay maximization program for us. And I said to them, you guys are payers, health plans. The copay maximization is supposed to be for your patients who cannot afford it, and not for you. Are you sure you want to do this? And have you guys verified this? Yeah, we have. We want to do it. So it became mainstream. Like it didn't take a year for this to become mainstream. So it boils down to how are it really boils down to drug pricing. So drug pricing is causing people to come up with all kinds of loopholes, all kinds of create all kinds of cottage industry to just create something in that supply chain to generate some revenue. So this is one of them. So I mean, it's good. It's by law. It shouldn't be legal to begin with, but if it's happening, again, it boils down to what we discussed earlier. Let's get to the basics. I mean, the basics of how drugs should be priced. Two, how we can make this industry local. I mean, how can this be a locally regional industry instead of a monopoly that it is today? And three, how do we get innovators to jump in with more, better approach to healthcare delivery is, I think, the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, you want to go or you want me to go? Because
there's so much more, right?
Right.
But you can go from the accumulators and maximizers, right to the, let's declare certain drugs non-essential and non-covered and send the patients to the manufacturer free good programs, to the expansion of 340B and all those kinds of things. But they're all symptomatic. They're just symptoms of, a system, as Mesfin points out, just really isn't kind of working well overall. And unfortunately, we don't have leadership emerging to take that on right now, at least. It feels, Mesfin, through all this, that things between the PBMs and manufacturers have gotten, somewhat adversarial in recent years. Has that been your experience or not? Is that a concern, do you think, or not?
So it looks like so this is how this is going. So the market is pushing. So the PBMs have created this guaranteed rebate concept. The consultants have adopted that guaranteed rebate concept. So health plans are saying, every year I'm going to check out. Is there a better guarantee I can get to save more money? So they are pushing. They're on their contract. They say, I have a right to do a market check every year, and then so somebody gets hired and they do a market check. So if there is there are three big guys who are fighting it out among themselves. So depending upon how, who they are, so they are going to fight. They are going to push for more discounts. So, so this is a PBM health plan pharmaceutical coordinated conflict is what we see. So pharmaceutical companies are the targets, and they have to get some. And everybody feels they have to get some more discount from them. And the health plans feel entitled. They have to get that money. Yeah. And PBMs are now saying, okay, I'm going to keep this client and I'm going to go to pharma and say, okay, now for this year, I need another X% to discount. And then goes into. So that conflict there is that conflict going on. And so right now, one day they are friends. The other day they don't like each other, but that includes all three pictures. So the pairs the insurance companies are really major, equally responsible for what's happening. It's the PBM wouldn't be able to do what they are doing if the insurance companies were behind it and pushing it, actually making it happen.
Well, the irony is the demand for the higher rebates, the higher cost shares for the patients, the accumulators and maximizers, and the 340B growth, all that stuff just gets priced in either to the next round of yearly price increases on the medicines, or now as those have pulled back, it's getting priced into the new product launches, and it just feels like a game of squeeze the balloon where we wind up spending about the same amount of money overall, but in a much less efficient way and a much more hassle-filled way.
But if I could, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
Yeah, please, Mark, jump in.
Well, I was just going to go back to the point that Mesfin was making, and and that a lot of this is driven by the insurance companies. But again, you mentioned the big three; they're all now owned by insurance companies,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And so, help us understand that dynamic because, we just saw a Humira biosimilar come to the market with two different prices, and you would think based upon what the PBM's sort of goal in life is to lower these drug costs, they would take the lower price, but they're all taking the higher price that has the rebate. It doesn't make sense. So is that driven because the health plan itself, as it grows, Obamacare guaranteed, a percent of administrative revenue that comes to them? I mean, help us understand the dynamics there.
So the rebate revenue that's coming from drug discount is not counted against net, although it is a net drug discount in terms of, it shows you actually you have paid, $1,000, although the drug is $3,000 because you got 2,000. That, but that discount can apply anywhere. So it can apply for premium reduction. It can apply for administrative subsidies. It can apply for, so from payer point of view, they have found that to be sort of a better vehicle to utilize to maximize profit. So now, therefore, when a product comes, I mean, there is no reason for Humira to be in the space at this point. Humira, there are two out already, and there is going to be, the money, the biosimilar manufacturers. I have spent a bunch of hours with few of them who came and said, okay, this is our strategy. This is every single strategy is we are going to mark it up and mark it down. That's the only way we have learned our lesson. The market is controlled. We are going to mark it up, and we are going to dramatically mark it down so that the people who are in the middle don't get mad at us. So that is how it's set up today. Unless we somehow shake it up and find a way to get this model to be more innovative, more competitive. It's the total growth is going to be, the overall cost is going to be high, the net cost is going to be low, the insurance carriers and the PBMs are going to continue to make margin, and the overall healthcare cost expenditure is going to be covered by whoever covers it, so by the way, the cost. The margin on the pharmaceutical manufacturer side it does matter, because I mean, if I need an 80% discount, if I am one of the decision makers in the big three, that you have to give it to me. Otherwise, you are out. A third of the market is controlled by me. So however you price it, now you have to price it at 110%, and then now you have to now cut it down by 70%, and then you have to try to make it work like that. So this is where we are now, and so there is a whole cottage industry created in between this situation. So unless we just have to be more innovative, more intelligent about the approach, and people have to seriously think about how to really have the free market work its magic to get a better healthcare system, a more efficient healthcare system, and. Otherwise, it's going to be, it's a challenge.
Yeah. So tell us more about that part, Mesfin, because we know obviously that you decided to separate from Perform RX, and now you're leading your own company, Paradigm RX. So tell us what you're working on there.
So we are working. I know, Scott. When we kicked it off about 2 years ago. We had a pharmaceutical company executives meeting, about 40 of them, for about 2 months. We met with each one of them, and our discussion was, hey guys, the way this trend is going is not going to help, and it's going to actually be a problem for all of us. So let's just bring back sanity to this thing. Let's just get back competitiveness. and then let's do this on the regional and local basis. Let's get this business to be vibrant again. So that was how we started it. It was then we went and developed a couple of technology products to actually make the system as transparent, as efficient it can be. The product that we launched, we had a pilot going with some pharmaceutical companies now called Tungsten Plus, blockchain-powered technology, to actually make sense of the whole rebate end-to-end activities, and to make sure that all this double dipping, triple dipping is all eliminated. Our belief is, if that was to be the case, at least we'll contribute some part in minimizing this overall increase. Like you said earlier, all these expenses are factored into new drug cost. So if we were to minimize these double, triple billings, then we can minimize a long-term overall drug cost increases as new products come. So we came out with those products, and then we have also developed a couple of clinical models that will actually include quality, and so we are out there trying to get the market to listen to us, and we are determined. We are not going to slow down in any way. We are going to keep on pushing. I think the market has to be pushed, and innovation has to take place and has to work. And so that's we are in this exciting journey. I mean, it's such a controlled market. It's amazing when you go into RFP competition. You pretty much go and wonder, wow, this is incredible. I mean, how did this market change to be like this? But again, we have to be in it. We have to be in it. We have to try convince people to buy into the idea. And payers are talking, some payers are talking about, we don't necessarily want the highest guaranteed rebate. Actually, we want a meaningful program. We have heard payers say that. And, interestingly, the highest guaranteed rebate and what we provide as the best offer actually is better. When you look at it at the end of the day, when you look at it comprehensively, it's a much better approach than just a spreadsheet, just guaranteed high rebate and this astronomical number and all that stuff. So we are moving ahead. I mean, so we'll keep you posted.
Well, that's exciting, Mesfin. That's very exciting, and I think that clearly helps answer our next question as well, and our final question, because we sort of wrap up with all of our guests and ask them the same question. But if I could, I just want you to also just sort of get your perspective from the patient perspective as well. Like what can be done, whether it's in your new company or with these new initiatives or new ideas. But overall, what would be your prescription for better access?
So I think patients, I know our healthcare system is a little complicated. I mean, even for people who know it is complicated. But patients and employers can direct, can lead, and then I don't think the patients or employers should settle for what they don't want or what they don't like. And I think they have to push, they have to demand better access to members, and they have to require that benefit designs should have a rational and reasonable way to make sure that their eligible members, their employees, are not inconvenienced. Are not. I think it really boils down to who pays the bill. The company or the entity that pays the bill has the right to ask, and if they feel that drug cost is something that bothers them, maybe they should do that differently. Maybe they should totally have a different approach to that. I mean, there are models out there. There are transparent startup companies, many of them trying to change the way pharmaceutical products are managed. Maybe that's their approach. I think people should get away from Single issue. Just give me the maximum rebate and the maximum discount has gotten where we have today. And people have to say, okay, now this has outlived itself. So I would say it's up to the payers. They have all the rights to say, 100,000 employee benefit company has a right to say, I really don't want any of this junk. I don't want privatization. I don't want this. I don't want that. You guys get this thing done right. Patient, and then they will get a response back. I guarantee you, there will be a model that will accommodate that. Like in a year, companies will come up with a model that will say, all right, so the margin, the healthcare cost margin, or the insurance company's margin, if it was 10%, now it will drop to 5%. So what?
Right.
So that may be the end game, but it really depends upon who pays the bill. The company that pays the bill has a right. They have to push. Consultants have a responsibility. Consultants have to be innovative. Consultants cannot gear the human resource executives to the same old model. I think they have a social responsibility to behave, to think out of the box. So, but at the end of the day, though, if we want to make a change, the payer has all the rights and they can make it happen. I mean, the insurance companies are hired by payers. And the insurance companies are paid. We call all our business we call ourselves middlemen, right? That's what we do. So the PBM insurance companies, there is a good function that gets done, but it shouldn't grow to the extent that it's a bottleneck for quality care. So I would say payer education, payer demand. I mean, they should just go, hell no. This is how we would like our care model system to go. Maybe that will push, and then be open to new models too. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah, and when people are coming, and not every company is succeeding because nobody wants to try anything new. So I would say, this a free market economy flourishes when there is innovation. There can be innovation when people are open-minded and energetic enough to want to try new stuff, new models. And then we have several of that popping up all over the place. Forget this status quo. Forget the whole the system that we have. It has worked. Okay, that's fine, but there is a better way. It can be much better if we go out of our box and make it work. So that's what I would say.
Well, that's well said.
Well, Mark, it's been another great episode. Thanks.
It has.
Yeah.
Mesfin,
we learn every time we do this. So
we do.
Time to wrap up. How about if I kick us off a little bit with a few things that really stuck out to me?
Okay, great.
So first was just a great reminder for me how much and why I've so enjoyed working with and talking with Mesfin through the years. He's got a reputation, obviously, as not only being a great, PBM executive, but you can tell he's a tough customer, tough negotiator. He's got a great reputation for those things too. But he calls things as he sees them, and he's fair and he's good to his word. And that stuff every time I interact with him. That stuff comes through. He shared, I thought, what was a great
Oh, we lost Scott again. Scott, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, we lost you there for a second. We lost you for just for the last 15 seconds.
Okay. Well, he provided a great overview, I thought, of how the industry worked and how it's evolved over time. And but I think more importantly, he really challenged all of us who work in it and to do better, to do more. I like his recipe about more local accountability, the accountability of the person who's paying the bills, and more local and regional decision making, more integrated decision making. All of that requires better leadership and a willingness to innovate, and he challenges us all to do that. He's living that. He has started his own new company to try to deliver on many of those ideas and promises himself, and I find that inspiring, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Well, no, I think those are all great. I think I would add the, you know, I'm not a part of the PBM industry. I mean, obviously one of my companies, Theracom back in the day was bought by Advanced PCS. So I had 3 years of working with a great group there. But they were, I guess those were early days, right? It was 2001 to 2004. But it was interesting to hear him talk about the fundamental sort of tools. Let's say the tools that PBMs use haven't changed. They've just been magnified, right? They've been like taken to the extremes. And so I think that was really interesting. Another thing was I loved his frankness about the industry and the need to reinvent itself. And finally, like you, I love the fact that he sort of challenged the employers to, you're picking up the tab. You shouldn't be in a situation where your employees are left holding the bag for high copays, high deductibles. If somebody gets sick, they're the ones who are paying the most. And obviously, I think the employers have a role here. And he mentioned also the benefit consultants. It's time for them to step up and stop living with the status quo and start getting where we need to be. Because we are seeing manufacturers lower the cost of drugs, and they're still picking the high cost option for the drug. So there has to be a better way. So all great. With that, Mesfin, thank you so much. Really appreciate your frankness and your thoughts and your prescription for better access.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mesfin.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, stay on
Thank
just
you.
a minute because we have to wrap up. And if I could, I get to do the wrap up. This has been episode 6, the PBM perspective. And again, thank you to our guest. And thank you to my co-host, Scott Howell, who once again has been fantastic. And now for everybody, you can listen to these episodes on YouTube. So I'm going to promote that. And also going to promote that we've received some great emails to comments at prescriptionforbetteraccess.com, ideas for future episodes, ideas for guests and others. So we're just really excited about the input we receive from our listeners. And so we welcome others to let us know. And with that, we'll wrap up episode 6. So thank you.